It's a gift. It's a privilege. And a lot of people don't have those things.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 16 of The Squad Room. If this is your first time listening, thanks for taking some time to listen to the show, and of course, I hope you like it. The Squad Room is devoted to optimizing the health and wellness of police officers around the world. When I talk about health and wellness, I don't mean just physical health and exercise, but how to maintain and improve our mental health, our wellness, and our mindfulness. Basically, any topic that can make us better people and better cops. The Squad Room is part interview podcast where I talk to experts in related fields and other police officers who've succeeded in finding a balanced life. It's also part documentary as I chronicle my efforts to lose weight, get in shape, and apply some of those lessons learned here to my own life. Today is one of those episodes where I gain so much perspective and knowledge from our guest. You're in for a great episode today with Santa Monica PD officer and co-host of the Wodcast Podcast, Scott McGee, but more on him in a minute. First, an announcement. If you've been listening to the show, first, thank you. Second, you'll know that I haven't had a sponsor yet. I've talked about CrossFit Pacific Coast and Traver Bohm, and I've thanked Jeff Dees of Fresh Tracks Designs for their help in getting this project off the ground. But they're really partners or friends helping me out. I've resisted the idea of a sponsor because I didn't want the message of the show to be diluted, misinterpreted, or ignored because I had an advertisement for something that didn't relate to the audience. I've been really reluctant to seek a sponsor, and because I don't want to give up the show's credibility for a little cash. That said, the show does cost money, and as I've noted before, I use the term, quote, we a lot when I'm talking about the show, as if I have a staff of producers and editors, but the truth is it's not a we show, it's a me show. The show is and has been a passion project, and I have no plans to slow down. In fact, I'll be ramping up more output of content over the next coming weeks and months, adding episodes more often, expanding the variety of topics, and offering a lot more value to my mailing list. I'm pretty excited. But that kind of effort takes resources and time. Time is my biggest resource allocation to this podcast. So much so that I often have to forego overtime shifts or put the kids in after-school care, things like that cost me money so that I can complete episodes. So, I'm not looking for sponsors, but I need support. A few weeks ago, I met Todd Maines. Todd is a veteran of the U.S. Army who, along with his partner John Para, also a U.S. Army veteran, own and run a company called SB Tactical. Like any company, they have a product or a service to sell. Oddly, I had tried their product before I knew who they were or what they were about, and I loved it. I believed in the product as an idea right away, and I saw the benefit of it to police officers immediately. But I had no idea this company's headquarters were literally down the street from my house. So Todd and I got introduced through Traver. We hit it off over coffee, talking about our individual projects and our projects that we have coming up, and we got up to leave with a promise just to keep in touch. Todd was so enthusiastic and supportive of the idea of the Squad Room that as we closed up our little get-together, he asked how SB Tactical could support the show. Well, my mind raced. I'd already decided that any company or organization that wants to partner with me must do three things. First, they must show an outward and consistent dedication and support to police officers. Two, they must make a product or service that I use personally and that I believe in. And three, they must support the goals of this podcast to spread the word about health and fitness in law enforcement. Frankly, SB Tactical hit all three on the mark. So for the future, you're going to hear me talking about SB Tactical on occasion. Their support is going to allow me to expand the show, offer better content, and engage with you better than I ever could have done before. On top of that, they really do make a product that I think law enforcement needs to be educated about. In some ways, it's an obvious choice for a product. It's called the iCombat Active Shooter Training System. I got to experience this system in my department's quarterly training long before I got to know these guys at SB Tactical, and I have to tell you, it is the best training system in law enforcement for active shooter scenario training. It's also the most fun. Think of it like laser tag for cops with an edge, delivered by 5,000 volts of teachable moments. Here's how it works. Each officer is outfitted with a Molly-style tack vest, headband, and receiver that all have sensors on them. You're also given a replica AR-15 and a replica Glock pistol. Now, replica isn't really a good word here. The AR and the Glock both cycle like real guns. They emit gunshot sounds, and they have muzzle flashes. They each have ammo accountability too, meaning that you have to keep track of your shots like a real firefight. The AR also functions with a safety, and it has single shot and burst modes, just like many of our ARs on the street. This is not a simulation system as they promote, it's a replication system. Because of this, you can take it anywhere. There's no site preparation or cleanup, there's no ammo costs, and none of the safety issues that come with live fire or Sims training. Don't get me started on Sims training. I hate it. I hate the headgear that limits your field of view. I hate the paint that gets on your uniform and your gear. I hate the malfunction rate of the Sims, and I hate how staged all the scenarios are because they have to account for the fact that you're spraying paint everywhere. iCombat has none of that. To prove that point, if you watch their video at sbtactical.com, they use a functioning terminal at Burbank Airport, one of the busiest airports in the LA area, and they use it for active shooter training. They used a functional terminal with as real as you get cover and concealment, and multiple agencies participated in this joint training operation. Back to those 5,000 volts of teachable moments, though. This is what adds the last element of replication and not simulation. If you're struck by an opposing force during a scenario, you're going to get a short alert, we'll say, that you've been hit. It's enough to make you flinch and get outside your reaction cycle, but not nearly enough to hurt. This is an important piece because as you'll see in the video, you'll see how people break from their objective when they start receiving fire. You'll see them flinch, you'll see them react, and frankly, you'll see them retreat. As I've said, I've used this equipment in my own department's training, and I think it's fantastic. If you're part of your training department's training cadre, or you're just bored of standing around on a static line and shooting 5 rounds into a paper target as part of your firearms qual, check out the system at sbtactical.com. They're an American-made product, and they're a veteran-owned company. Now, you might not think that iCombat is not related to our health and fitness, but here's my take. This is a system that replicates an active shooter event. If done right, your mindset and your fitness are both challenged using the system, and it exposes your weaknesses. The whole point of the show is to expose weaknesses in order to improve them. So there you go. So, on to today's guest. Scott McGee is many things. Father, son, police officer, SWAT cop, and he's also the co-host of the hugely popular weekly podcast, the Wodcast Podcast. The Wodcast is devoted to all things CrossFit, and if you don't already listen to it, you probably should. It's actually one of the shows that inspired me to start my show when I heard Scott on his. Hearing Scott helped me convince me to give this a try. Scott's been featured on the CrossFit Journal several times, and we have those links to his videos and his articles in the show notes for this episode at thesquadroom.net/episode 16. Because of that, I reached out to him years ago, long before this show, to try and get advice on how to start a gym at my own department. Scott bent over backwards, having never met me before, to help me get info and resources and help me get started and get that project moving at my own department. But what that really gave me was a sense of how enthusiastic and energetic this guy is, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. When I started the show, Scott was one of the first people I asked to be on as a guest, and he quickly said yes. The birth of his second son and a busy summer for us both kept us from having that happening right away, but we got around to it. Scott invited me down to his home in LA to chat, and he couldn't have been a better host to this host. True to form, he had me sweating and going through a mini workout before we ever hit record, and he gave me a glimpse into his life. Scott is one of those guys that is just absolutely alive with energy. I don't mean he's spastic and full of ADHD, I just mean that he has such a presence and character that it is undeniable. Greg Amundson, our guest in episode 3, is a good friend of Scott's, and he's the same way. They both literally glow from the inside out. And frankly, it's awesome. We get into Scott's work and habits, his philosophy on the show, so I won't rehash it here, but here are some major points that I want to hit on. Scott is a firm believer in optimism, and the power of optimism and how he stays positive in a tough job is really motivating. He talks about how personal responsibility is his freedom and not his burden, and how physical fitness and the capacity for work are his blessings. It's pretty amazing stuff. The last thing before we get to the interview, please go over to iTunes and give us a review on the homepage and let us know what you think of the show. And we have a new feature because I keep asking everyone to sign up for our mailing list and go over to our website. Well, here's an easy way to do it. You don't even have to hit pause on the show to do it. Text 44222. Sorry, let me restate that. Get out your phone and text The Squad Room, all one word, The Squad Room. Text that to 44222, and you can sign up for our newsletter right from your phone. We won't spam you. We don't keep track of your phone number. any of that stuff. It just is a chance for us to get your email so that you can join the mailing list for the show. Like I said, we're going to be expanding a lot of stuff coming up. You don't want to miss out. So text the Squad Room to 44222 and sign up for the mailing list. All right. As always, you can follow us on Twitter at the Squad Room and Instagram. Same. Email us at squadroompodcast@gmail.com. But here's the show. All right, Scott, welcome to the Squad Room. Thanks for being here.
Hey, my pleasure.
So we have a couple things in common right off the bat that I can't help but notice. One is we're both peace officers, obviously. Two is we both live near airports. Three is that we're both wearing black shorts and a black T-shirt. So you obviously, we got that, and then the hair. Although yours is a little bit long for you.
Yeah, I'm a little embarrassed. It's a little long.
You didn't trim it for me.
Actually, it's going off tomorrow.
It's coming off tomorrow. Yeah. Okay. So back to the airport thing real quick. So I got down here early, and I drove down from Santa Barbara. You were kind enough to invite me over here and host. Thank you very much. And got in early, so I went over and got some breakfast and was doing some work this morning, and figured it was time to get ready to come over here and see you. So I look at my phone, and I see the directions that Google Maps gives me. And go, I know a better way than that. So I end up in El Segundo.
Of course.
Because I'm like, I can hang a left off of one of our major thoroughfares here. And no, there's like no U-turns, no left turns until you're on the complete other side. And, I live near a dinky little like regional commuter airport. You live next to a terrorist wet dream over here.
Oh, yeah. Yep. So I live by LAX, and just so you know, I did that several times when I moved in.
Okay, so I'm not the...
So at my house, if you miss a turn, you end up having to go through tunnels, underneath all the runways at LAX, and go to a different city to turn around.
Just to make a left turn, and total guy thing to just look at the phone and go, I know I can get there. Yep. But anyway, so I got here, but thank you. You've already put me through a solid workout with some of your sandbags over there, and I'll link to the video of you guys working with these things to describe to people what they are. But this is not like a sandbag with the straps that you can grab onto and you can run around and do your clean and jerks. This is a product of Julian over at Strong Fit.
Yep.
Yeah. And what are the weights?
So the ones I have at my garage are 120, 180, and 240. And the best way to describe them are they're like thick canvas potato sack bags.
Yeah, that's probably about accurate. I was proud I got the 180 up to chest level.
Yep.
The 2-something was probably going to cause a work comp claim. But
yeah. The 240.
240.
We call that Julian.
Yeah. That's... almost my body weight in sand, which is, I'm looking at it right now, trying to condense myself into that, and it's kind of scary. Anyway, so, we've been corresponding for a little while. Thank you for your willingness to come on and your support. You are a police officer here in Santa Monica, correct?
Yep.
Okay. How long have you been on the department?
10 years.
10 years.
10 years in Santa Monica, yep.
Congratulations. Were you somewhere else before that?
Luckily, no.
Okay.
No, I won in Santa Monica. That's where I'm from, and it's beautiful place to work.
Yeah, it's funny. It just struck me now. Another thing. So I was living down here. I was living in Brentwood actually just up the street from Santa Monica.
Yep.
When I decided that I was going to get this harebrained idea to go be a cop, and started applying around a couple of agencies around here, and they're so slow. A lot of them. And Santa Monica was kind of like you said. It's kind of like it was a pipe dream. Mm-hmm. It's kind of got a lot of everything, but not some of the bad stuff, But it's certainly a hopping town. And I put in an app, but then got picked up with my department so fast that I never got through the process with Santa Monica. But I just passed 10 years too. And it was kind of funny. Did you go through LA Sheriff's Academy? Or
we use
LA?
Orange County.
Orange County. Yep. That's legit.
Yep.
Not that LASO isn't, but...
No, this is what I tell... We had a couple guys go through LA, but there's a big difference.
Yeah. Yeah. That's just funny. So we got about the same amount of time on, too, then. What brought you to that? This wasn't was this your first career out of school? Or what kind of led you to deciding to go into law enforcement?
Well, I think it was around college. I'm in college. I went to UC Davis. I played football there. I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life other than do well in school and play sports. So I ended up majoring in psychology, which I figured was kind of a broad thing. And when it came down to it towards the end, it's like, all right, well, what am I going to do from here? I wasn't 100% sure. I was thinking about going to grad school, but I want to go grad school and not know exactly why I'm going to grad school, other than to keep going to school because I didn't know what else to do. So after college, I moved back here to Los Angeles, to Santa Monica, and kept training people. I started a little fitness company, and it looked, actually, my model looked very similar to Fight Gone Bad. And so I would meet in parks. I would set up a square, and each side of the square had a different goal. So one side of the square would be an upper body movement. The other side would be a lower body movement, a full body movement, and then a core movement. And you'd spend a minute on each side, and you'd go around it 4 times, rest a minute, and then the next time we'd go through it, there would be a different. So, for example, the lower body, instead of squats, we'd be doing lunges. And instead of sit-ups, we'd be doing planks. And so it's kind of like an AMRAP. Mm-hmm. So I was doing that for a while, then I started getting bored of it. I didn't have anybody in my family in law enforcement. I didn't have any friends. So it wasn't never really in my face or an option, which, same thing with the military, actually. And I'm out in the park, I'm sitting here counting. I'm like, how many times can I count to 10? How many times can I say, come on, let's go? Right. I miss being part of a team. So a handful of things. I missed being part of a team. I missed having stuff to work on. So like in football, you can always work on your foot speed, your strength, your overall speed, your hand-eye coordination, your ability to read defenses. There's all kinds of things that you can work on and improve on. Mm-hmm. And I missed that. So I started looking around. I was like, well, okay, I want to have a career that's going to be able to support a family. I was thinking about retirement. I was thinking about insurance. I'm thinking about mortgage. And this is all my early mid-20s. And then I wanted something to be outside. I wanted something that I could use physical fitness in. And I wanted a job, and this was the big thing. I wanted a job where common sense mattered. That's a big, to me, I was like, I didn't want to sit at a desk forever. I didn't want to have, I wanted something like I feel like I have a pretty good head on my shoulders. What can I do? Mm-hmm. And then it just hit me. It dawned on me. I was like, well, I was looking at U.S. Marshals for a while. I was looking at FBI, but then I didn't want to not be able to pick where I lived.
Sure, yeah.
And so that's then it hit me. I wanted to be a professional good guy. And then a light bulb went off, and I was like, I saw the rest of my life.
There it is.
Yeah, and
10 years later.
I came close to doing a chiropractor. I came close to doing sports psychology. Mm-hmm. But actually, I think in law enforcement, in the job that I have, there's a little bit of everything that includes sports psychology and chiropractic work.
Yeah. Yeah, well, chiropractic, I think, use of force.
Well, no, yeah. Maybe I should explain that a little more.
Psychology, I get that.
In a sense, what I mean by that is, and in law enforcement, our career, low back injuries and pain is so prevalent.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so to be able to help through that direction is rewarding for me.
That makes sense. Gotcha. Yeah. I get that.
No manual adjustments in the field.
Yeah, that's so. You just mentioned it, professional good guy. That's on your Instagram bio as well. What's that mean to you?
Well, I think the biggest thing is most people in law enforcement just want to help. They don't like the bad guys. They want to put the bad guys away. Of course, that's a big draw. That's what gets people going in the beginning. But then also to be there to help people that need it. Mm-hmm. Whenever, and those of you that are listening, if you don't know, whenever you see law enforcement going anywhere fast or with licensed sirens, majority of the time they're going because somebody was calling for help. And so those are the good guys going. So there's a little bit that we're all professional good guys. Yeah. But I also like that term because I've always had a big thing with like superheroes. I've always been a Superman when I was a kid and Batman. And of course, these are fictional characters, but they're good guys. Mm-hmm. But in law enforcement, the professional good guy, that's kind of what the term I've coined.
Yeah. No, I like it. I think it accurately describes our intent and our goals, but also the attitude we need to kind of live out. If you go to work every day thinking, I'm a professional good guy today. I think it can change your outlook if you're having a rough day.
Yeah, it's also, I think, the same comparison a little bit to the warrior guardian conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know,
that one's obviously very timely and current.
Yep.
Too. And I get the guardian aspect of it, and embrace all those ethos. I just think it's, to me, the guardian conversation is starting because people misinterpret the warrior, or the concept of the warrior, or the idea of the warrior, what that really means, you know, and that the warrior is coming from a good place, not an evil, aggressive, dangerous place.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, semantics, but
right, yeah. But we're all going to be sheep guardians soon. I guess not sheepdogs, but
yeah.
So you were doing the physical training and stuff on your own. You just mentioned a pretty legendary CrossFit workout. You've been doing CrossFit for quite a while, and I'm looking at all your T-shirts here of all the places you've been and the competitions you've been in. What got you into that, or what was your aha moment in CrossFit? Everyone seems to have that one workout or that one experience that they went to and they went, okay, nothing else.
Yep. Well, I've been very heavily involved with fitness since I was a kid. So I'm looking back, I had overuse injuries when I was in elementary school. You know, I'm like, thanks, Dad. You know, driving in the car, changing uniforms from soccer to football or to baseball. Mm-hmm. So that type of work ethic started early. And then with football, of course, started training with weights and doing cleans when I was 13 years old. And that carried on through high school, through college, and then after college as well. And I started toying around with different fitness things. For a while, I started getting into like 5Ks and trying to get fast at those. I started toying around with some powerlifting stuff. Even, I don't want to say bodybuilding because that implies like big old gigantic meatheads. So maybe like body-ish building. Or, okay, again, so I would go in the day and I would actually work on my rear delts. You know, I did one of those type of things for a while.
Yeah.
I even went through a time where I was just powerlifting stuff. I didn't do a single piece of cardio for 9 months and just got really strong.
Yeah.
I felt like I could go flip a car over, but if I had to walk up a flight of stairs, I was tired. I wasn't that big, but that just the strength levels went up. So I kept doing things like that, and then trying to figure out like which one of those I wanted to do, what I wanted to be good at. Like, do I want to be fast? Do I want to be strong? Do I want to be able to do, 25 unbroken pull-ups, strict? Mm-hmm. Back then it was just pull-ups, and so I started figuring out. I felt like I should always be able to walk into the gym and do 20 pull-ups. That was just the thing. I was like, it's just you're just lifting yourself up onto a bar. 20 pull-ups didn't seem like that big of a deal, but it was something that a lot of guys in the regular old LA Fitness 24-hour fitness gym couldn't do. Mm-hmm. And so that was kind of a key. I was like, wow, I should be able to do stuff with my own body weight. That's just like a basic, like I should be able to do some push-ups and pull-ups. Like if you can't do that, then why am I lifting weights? Mm-hmm. But I still kept up with the weights. And so in between weight sets, like your Tuesdays, back and buys, I would still do body weight movements. So if I was doing chest flies, I would be doing push-ups or pull-ups in between each set. And that was kind of my thing. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to go to the gym to just stand there in between sets. It was like, you come here to work, why am I just standing here?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what was the foundation. So I was still working. I was working for the police department, and then in 2006, my good friend Andy Rios mentioned to me, because we were both into fitness. He's like, "Hey, check out CrossFit." I'm like, "What? What are you talking about? CrossFit? Is this some church thing?" And so he's like, "No." So he opened up the website. We were at the station in the report room. Opened up the website. We're looking at the same like main site that pretty much looks the same, like it still does, today, and showed me the workouts. And so I wish I remembered the very first workout I ever did, but I don't. Probably because I went blind or something. I don't know. But it was standard workouts, and it was very easy, and it was very quick. And I remember the feeling that it felt more realistic for me. And I finally felt like I'd found what I was looking for. Mm-hmm. And it was organized. And it wasn't, to me, it wasn't like revolutionary to anything, but it was like someone named it and organized it, and it's online, and there's all these people doing it. And it was together. Mm-hmm. So a couple of things. One, it was challenging. That got my attention. I was not good at it. It got my attention. I guess not good at it in the sense that like it kicked my butt.
Yeah. Stoke that competitiveness.
Yeah. Because I don't like to always do something like you can do and you're good at, because that's just not, it gets boring. And the other big thing about it that I really liked was the team component, and working out together and doing the same workout with a bunch of people built camaraderie. You're suffering together.
Right.
And so that pretty much started it. And then for a while I dabbled in a little bit, and I was like, you know what, I feel like I'm getting too skinny. And early on CrossFit mistakes, I wasn't eating enough food, and I was running too much. And so there's a lot of things I didn't figure out. Same thing with paleo. And early on when I started doing paleo, I wasn't eating enough, and so I lost too much weight, and I blamed paleo instead of myself. And so that's kind of it. And then myself, Andy Rios, and my friend Sean Cooney, we started doing CrossFit together at the station. And this is 2006, so really nobody knew what the heck we were doing. Nobody knew what CrossFit was. There was no Reebok shoes. Wasn't very many gyms.
Yeah.
And we were doing CrossFit inside of our gym at work that was full of machines. Just machines everywhere. We ended up getting a tiny little space in the corner enough space in the corner for one person to do a barbell movement. And that's kind of how it started. And then slowly but surely, things changed, and now our gym is gutted out and almost empty of machines, which is kind of cool. Not that I'm against machines, but a little bit.
Well, you've been a member of the SWAT team for quite some time now, right? And as a result of that, you and your team have been featured on the CrossFit Journal and the main site several times in different videos there. It seems like it's definitely become a culture at your department that's
100%. Yeah. And that I am very, very proud of. There were, I think in our department, there's our culture of fitness is very high. And so I don't know exactly why. I don't know if we're in LA, we're more vain. I don't know, or it's just I think Los Angeles in general has a good culture of fitness.
Yeah.
So, our SWAT team at first, the three of us that started there in the beginning are on the SWAT team together, and we tried to bring it on early on, and we're kind of like shoved aside a little bit. We were really brand new on the team, so we didn't really have a voice. But the guys that were like some of the biggest haters of CrossFit on our team are now they have their own affiliates. Now they can't. I never see them walking out of the station without some like CrossFit article clothing on.
Yeah.
But it's really cool to see what they've done with it, and that is the biggest reward. To be able to sit back and look at all these people that have improved their life and that have improved their relationships with their wives, because now the wives are CrossFitting. Just the bond that has brought in everybody. Yeah. And so on our team, we were featured. I think the first video might have been Murph. I don't remember. Yeah, probably Murph, where our official qualifier for someone that wanted to become on the team or stay on the team, we twice a year would do Murph, and that started officially in 2010, and that comes off of our LA SEB's O course. We used to do that, but it was kind of a drive for us to get out there to go just to do our qualifier. And over time, I think there was 8 surgeries off that obstacle course from guys over the last 20 years of our team. So eventually we got Murph going, and then we had Dave Castro come down and Greg Amundson, who's been on the show. Yep. He came down and did Murph with us. And so that's how that started, and that spread over the country because we were the first team that had a quote-unquote CrossFit workout as a qualifier. Yeah. Now, granted, Murph isn't necessarily only a CrossFit workout, but it's a awesome hero that CrossFit has honored and brought to the attention of several people. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's from an outsider's perspective, and I've talked about this before on the show, trying to get a similar environment, just an environment at my department. Santa Monica is very much a leader in that. And I think it's because, like you just said, you have people who are natural leaders in the department who have kind of spread that, and you also have I don't think you have the same chief from that time, right?
No, new chief.
But and I don't know how your new chief is, but the old chief, certainly from the public things that he was saying, certainly seemed to embrace that idea and understand the importance of it. And that seems like a crucial aspect of anything, is having that buy-in.
Yeah, 100%. That was and is still the biggest goal and theme is you have to have buy-in from the powers that be. Mm-hmm. So our old chief, Tim Jackman, didn't know what CrossFit was at first, gave us a chance, figured out what it was, and then ended up training. He started taking himself to a CrossFit gym and training and coming out and doing workouts with us. So we did a workout in honor of one of our officers that died in overseas, Rick Crocker. We did a workout, and this is one of the videos that were featured by mm-hmm. HQ. And our chief of police was out there doing the workout with us right next to a 2-year-old. So mm-hmm. I mean, how cool is that? We have our department out here mixed with our PAL kids, mixed with local martial arts studios, to the police and fire guys are out there, and our chief and some of our kids doing CrossFit together. Yeah, work on the fitness. Yeah, man, it's so cool.
The message that sends, I think, is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, 100%. He even came out to when we did our first CrossFit law enforcement symposium. Mm-hmm. Our chief came out and spoke very highly about CrossFit and what it's done for our department. Very cool to have that.
Wow. Yeah, and I certainly don't know every department in the nation, but I can't think of any that has several affiliate owners within the department itself too. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, we have. I almost opened one in 2010. It was Signature away. On top of that, we have Andy Rios, who has CrossFit See-Me, and Greg Smiley, he's our senior sergeant on our team. He has Precision CrossFit. Mm-hmm. And both those guys, Greg's made it to the CrossFit Games as a master's athlete. And he's one of the guys that was anti at first. Yeah. We still remind him of that now, but he sends me workouts that I can't even complete. I mean, it's so cool.
Yeah, and he's mid-40s, 44 years old.
Yeah,
or something like that.
Yeah. Let's see, he's 40. I don't know, 48. I think he's retiring soon.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, that's really, really cool. Well, I mean, you may not have opened an affiliate, but you certainly are active in the community and you're big. If anyone's wondering why you are so comfortable with behind a microphone, it's because you're also one of the co-hosts of the Wodcast Podcast. Yep, one of my favorite podcasts. Thank you. And frankly, one of the shows that I listened to that inspired me to go out and do this myself. So that's really cool. And yeah, I've been listening to that show for quite some time. The show is about CrossFit, or about.
It is, but we can't say that.
Oh, you can't say that?
We can't even say that. I totally understand it. We had
it's
it
about
one of our
general
description. We had it up on some website that said we talk about CrossFit, and we got an email saying you can't say that.
So you talk about general physical preparedness in a athletic setting.
Yeah. No, we talk about CrossFit. We just can't use a trademark. Respect. I understand. We respect we can't use a trademark, but yeah.
But you have a lot of pretty high-profile people on. It's you guys. Is it weekly or?
Yep, every week.
Yeah. So you host that, but you're also producing that show and very, very involved in in basically everything about that show. On top of your job, what's your current assignment? Do you have a desk job, or are you out in the field? Or
I have my official title is neighborhood resource officer, or senior lead officer. There's several names for it. Yeah, and it's a very cool position to have, and I like to say it's like my unit's like the Swiss Army knife of the department. So whatever is going on that day or what needs to be done, we'll do. If we're in the office, we're in the office. Or we're out in the field dealing with auto burglaries, we'll deal with that. Come up with operations. If we need to go help patrol, we do that. So it's actually really cool. Get to do just about a little piece of everything.
Yeah, I did something similar for a long time called community resources. More affiliated with kind of community policing and neighborhood watch and stuff like that, but kind of the same vibe. I lovingly called it the arts and crafts division.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that. We make videos too.
Yeah, the minor crimes unit, that was another one. Yeah. That's what other people called it.
Nice. I'm going to use that.
The minor crimes unit? Yeah.
I'm going to steal that.
I wanted to get one of those. I wanted to get a raid jacket with the star, and then on the back, minor crimes unit, and just throw that on and go running out of the car every so often. And
hey, but it's super, super necessary, and people love it.
Absolutely. The thing I learned in that job is that the biggest impact, the biggest force multiplier we can do is probably in jobs like that, because you may not be necessarily preventing crime, but you are lessening people's stress about it. Yep. And if people are less stressed about crime and less stressed about harm to their family or their property, and they have a more centered sense of self in their community, then their quality of life increases as if you had prevented the crime to begin with. Yep, that was a big thing I learned out of that. I did that for 3 years.
Yeah, it's we always say in our department it's the the crime and fear of crime.
Yeah.
And social disorders. So I say, what's more important, crime or the fear of crime? If someone feels more comfortable, like sometimes it's a stat. If they don't know what's going on and they feel comfortable, then I guess ultimately that's the biggest goal.
Yeah.
Obviously, we don't like crime, but
absolutely not. But realistically, too, after 10 years, you know this too. That's like we're not going to prevent all of it, and there's some of it we just can't.
Yep.
We just can't.
Yep. But
if we can lessen that fear of crime, that's where we win the battle, I think, with people.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So. The Wodcast Podcast, you've been doing that for 3 years now?
So it's been out, let me see, wow, it's February of 2012 it started. So 3.5 almost now.
And how did you, wow. For people who don't listen to the show, which I highly recommend that they do, and I'll include the links, you have 2 co-hosts.
Yep.
Eddie Ifft. Who's a comedian. And I don't mean like comedian, like he's just the funny guy on the show. He's actually a working stand-up comic, right?
Yeah, he actually goes and like has his name up on the billboard, and he travels. Like people come to Australia and do tours. You know, he's like, he has like CDs and a website and everything.
He's legit, right?
Yeah.
He's real. He's got his own podcast too.
Yep.
And then Armen Hammer
Yep.
is your other host, who just recently moved, but he was affiliated with CrossFit 818, is it?
Yes.
And was his he originally blogged at, what was his website? It was, I know his handle's Hey Naked.
Hey Naked, yeah. He had Naked CrossFitter.
The Naked CrossFitter, right. So he's like your color commentary guy for anything about CrossFit at the professional level, it seems. But how on earth did you get connected with those 2 guys and get invited onto the show? And here we are, 3 years later. How many episodes? 400 plus episodes?
Not yet. Let's see. We're 100 and, I want to say 195.
195, okay.
Which reminds me, I got to plan something for the 200th episode. The 100th
we can just keep recording here.
Yeah, keep it going. We had our 100th episode. We had Bob Harper from The Biggest Loser on, so I got to figure.
That's a good one.
Yeah, he's awesome.
I was just telling a story last week with when I was interviewing Brian Watkins about Bob, because he used to be a spin instructor at Crunch in West Hollywood, and I used to take classes from him when I tried spinning for this brief period of time. And I won't retell it here, but I'll tell you later a story because I already told it. A story of getting tossed off of a spin bike in Bob's class and crashing into Lily Sobieski, the actress.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, crashing.
She looks like a young Helen Hunt.
Yes, more so too when you're flying at her off of a spin bike because you forget that the pedals don't stop moving. That
is awesome.
And I got launched into her, and Bob was up there.
You created motion and fell off a stationary object.
I'd like to think that I'm the only person who's ever been able to crash a spin bike. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Right.
Man, if there was video of that would go viral.
And you just kind of walk up, you got to stand up from that and just own it.
Yep.
You know, my bad. So that was funny.
So Armen, let's see. I came on as a guest on, I want to say the 14th episode or 12th or 14th episode, sometime there in the beginning. Mm-hmm. At the time, there was a host, Kenny Kane, and was somebody I'd known because he was working for CrossFit LA. And I think anybody that CrossFitted before 2010, we all knew each other. Mm-hmm. Especially like 2007, 8, because it wasn't like there was that many. But those people that CrossFit, if you were in LA, you knew who each other were and become friends. And so Kenny Kane was one of the hosts in the beginning. And it was through him that I got on the show as a guest as a SWAT officer that CrossFitted.
Okay.
And so that and a police officer. So the combination of those, they found that interesting. Mm-hmm. And so that's how I came on. And then I ended up coming on again. They were probably short for guests there in the beginning. I don't know. And so about 20 episodes later, when Eddie Ifft would travel, because he was traveling a lot, I started coming on as a guest co-host. I think they liked the research I did on the guests, or I knew what was going on in the CrossFit community especially from the games level. Mm-hmm. I was training a lot with Lindsay Valenzuela and Dusty Highland, those guys over at Dogtown. So I was kind of in the loop of information, and that was helpful. And so I guest hosted probably 10 times, and then once Kenny Kane left the show, I just kind of stayed. Here I am.
Yeah.
And then so started helping book guests, started building up social media stuff, started Instagramming stuff for the show, and having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
I always joke around. I was like, what's the first rule of CrossFit? Like you must talk about CrossFit,
Yeah.
right? And you've never met a CrossFitter that didn't talk about CrossFit. So
Not shy.
having a show about it and a fun show
Mm-hmm.
it has been a blast over the last 3 years for me.
It must be the people you guys talk to, a wide variety, but just kind of consistent inspiration to learn more, go out and try new things. You're always having guests on that have a unique perspective, or that kind of. To me, that's part of the motivation of me doing this show is I get to go out and talk to people I wouldn't necessarily ordinarily have the opportunity to talk to.
Totally cool. Do you have the same thing where like the best podcast is usually before or after the show? You know, once you stop recording and walk away, it's like, oh my gosh, I forgot to tell you this story.
Yeah. I frequently, I'm still learning to not hit stop and to hit record early.
100%. I end up doing like podcast policing before the show. When you have the guests come, because we have, Eddie will come, I'll be there. We have our sound guy, Machete, and then Armen, who now is Skyping in, but he's on for before the show starts. I have to because there's so much excitement, I have to stop people from talking.
Yeah.
Like, shut up,
don't burn it.
Save the organic conversation for the air.
Yeah. Yeah.
But a lot of fun doing a lot. We've gotten to travel all over the country doing the show. We've got to talk from everyone from Rich Froning to Dmitry Klokov, to like I said, to Bob Harper, and to get different perspectives from people, from athletes to coaches to people that have gone through struggles. It's a lot of fun, and we do it all with a huge sense of humor, and it's not that serious. We joke around, we have a good time.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
So that's a lot of work, though. I mean, producing a show that comes out weekly, and guests and travel, and you've got obviously a day job.
Yep.
This is, I have to imagine, almost a second job in terms of the commitment and the mental energy it takes. You've got a family too.
Yep.
How do you parse all that together, or do you have a routine that you stick to, or is there a methodology or a philosophy that you use to kind of to keep all of that going? That's a lot of balls in the air at the same time.
No, absolutely. And they always say if you want something done, you give it to a busy person. So I think that's a little bit true here. Some things fall by the wayside a little bit. Like, I'm not physically training as hard as I used to. I'm not spending as much time doing that. I'm not sleeping anywhere near as much as I used to. Obviously, I have a 3-year-old and a 4-month-old, so sleep is over. And other things I'm not doing. So I'm not doing jiu-jitsu now. Mm-hmm. I'm not doing any kickboxing. I'm not doing I'm not going to see a movie. I'm not stuff like that. That is that benefits me. I'm not doing. I'm not reading as much as I probably would like to. So little things like that. So I start to prioritize. And the show now, after all these years, I've gotten it down to where the time commitment isn't as big. It's a well-oiled machine. We all have a set time now, so it's not like I'm juggling everyone's schedules like I used to. Every now and then a guest will come up where it's like that. So, but not so much anymore. We record Tuesdays at 7:30 p.m. So I don't have, unless something changes, so I don't have to worry about my schedule, Eddie's, Armen's, or Mercedes' schedule. We have that set aside. It wasn't like that for a little while. Mm-hmm. So then finding a guest and coordinating that sometimes that takes a while, but it's not that bad. And then the other stuff, the education component, I'll squeeze it in where I can, where I'll read up about the guests on the internet, or I'll see what's going on in the CrossFit community. I'm all into that stuff anyways.
Right.
So it's not
necessarily work.
Yeah. And luckily for me, it's once we hit play and we're recording, I just kind of coordinate the show. I see how long we're recording for, what direction we're going, making sure we're hitting all of our points. Mm-hmm. I drag it back in sometimes.
It's usually you. Okay, guys.
I let it go and I sit there. I'm like, okay, wait for a little pause. All right, I bring it back, because otherwise we end up going on so many different tangents.
Yeah.
And it was like that for a while. I remember when I first came on as a guest, I was like, why am I here? Because I didn't feel like I was getting talked to.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing that I do on the show is I treat it like a fan first. And so I treat it like I know what it's like to be a guest. I know what it's like to be a listener. And so that's how I coordinate and act as a host. Mm-hmm. So now it's gotten much easier. I don't have to worry about shirts anymore. because we have a third party that sells shirts. We have somebody else that does the website stuff. Mm-hmm. So it's actually calmed down a lot.
So it seems like two things out of that. Scheduling is important.
Yep.
You got to schedule your day, and then prioritizing and finding the things that maybe only you can do versus things that people can do for you, or that you don't necessarily need to have done that to accomplish your goals, right?
Yep.
I mean, movies are nice, but I imagine going to see a movie is at the top of your list compared to being with family or making sure the show goes off as planned or whatnot.
Yeah. Usually, if I'm not at work or with the family or doing the show or working out, I'm driving in traffic. That sums it up.
That's actual percentage of life.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, and so that's something I had to have. I consider heavily. Mm-hmm. Like, when do I work, and what gym do I go to? So I used to go to Dogtown a lot, and after work for me to drive to Dogtown CrossFit took me 40 minutes because of traffic at that certain time in LA.
Yeah.
So that was something I had to stop doing. I couldn't afford wasting 40 minutes for that one way to get there and then another 20 or 30 minutes to get home.
Yeah.
So things like that I had to cut out and be more efficient with time management.
So do you work out mostly from home then, or do you have a different gym nearby?
Home, and work as well. The work gym now works really well. It's kind of nice. After work, I'll go in there, work out, and shower back in the locker room, and then head home.
It's done.
Yeah. And once I come home, I can't even get my wallet out of my pocket before the game is on.
Yeah. Then your real job starts.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I live all of 3 minutes from my station, so I don't even have. Some guys, they live an hour and they have a commute, and then it's nice and they can calm down.
Yeah.
No, I'm like a couple stoplights away.
Oh wow!
And I hit the door and I'm back in it with homework.
When do you listen to your podcast?
I don't. My own podcasts or the podcasts?
Just podcasts in general.
Night shift. Night shift, when it's quiet.
Yeah.
And I'll Bluetooth one into the car and I'll just drive around and listen. Or some, depending on the topic, I will treat as professional development. And I'm not saying I'm blowing off work, but as a supervisor, I think it's important, especially as a supervisor, but in anyone in law enforcement, to spend a little bit of each day making yourself better at something.
Yep.
Whether that's knowing your case law or your lexipol or your policy or whatever it is, making yourself better. So if I can find a podcast that I think relates to either like leadership or management or motivating people or just expanding my own mind, I will sometimes listen to those early morning in the shift when it's still quiet,
that's cool.
6 to 7 a.m. or something like that. The benefit of being at a sheriff's department, especially where I am, is I can do a 10, 15-mile drive. I'm still in my area. I'm still in my jurisdiction. I'm still on patrol, but I can, get some of that time in, and I'm still doing something in the meantime, being visible and out and about.
You have like a little Bluetooth speaker?
Yeah.
Why don't we have those for the radios yet?
I don't know. Well, they do, and they work. The ones that I've tried to work horribly because there's a delay between when you click and when it goes to the mic, and then when it gets transmitted. And the ones that we've tried, in the interim there, dispatch is stepping over you again, trying to answer up. So it's there. I'm sure it's going to be there.
I really feel like in the car, this whole hands-free thing, I feel like we should be able to drive, press a button in the steering wheel, and talk.
You can. And it's not even Bluetooth. That's actually older technology. Our old cars used to have a foot mic where you could drive around and with your left foot, where the e-brake would be essentially, you could press down on that and talk, and it would pick up on the mics. For whatever reason, we got rid of those. But that's one of the best things. And we just got the new Tahoes, the police package Tahoes for supervisors. Fantastic car. And they were going to have them. They were going to have on the steering wheel, they were going to have the mics. So all you had to do was hit the mic.
Makes sense.
And hit another button to go code. And it was going to be beautiful. And then, command staff gets a hold of it and goes, that's an extra $500. We don't want to spend that money. And they took it out. So
that makes sense to me.
Instead, you're driving around with the microphone and across your lap like everyone does and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
I have another invention. Are you ready for it?
Yeah, please.
So when you go to a restaurant and you get those little like here's your little like plastic thing. Hold this, and then once it vibrates,
Mm-hmm.
Right? My invention would be to have a system like that in the microphones, the portable mics that you wear on wherever you wear on your patrol uniform, and whenever either whenever dispatch is talking to you or trying to raise you, they have the opportunity to hit a button to have that vibrate.
I like that.
Right?
Yeah.
Because especially if you work in a loud environment, instead of them trying to raise you over and over and over or doing an alert tone or whatever the case may be, they hit the little vibration button. Boom. Oh, they're trying to raise me.
That's good.
Right?
You shouldn't say that. You could patent that and make money.
No, I know. Yeah.
I know that, everyone's focused on body cameras.
If I do hashtag trademark, it's official, right?
Hashtag trademark, yes. I know body cameras right now, they're working on those kinds of things like GPS locators and live streaming the video. That kind of scares me. But live streaming the video from your body camera to a particular place. But, yeah, that makes sense. Why wouldn't you have something like that? I was just asking our lead tech guy, because our department just got this huge wazoo mobile command Megatron truck thing. Yes. They're very proud. There's like a little conference room. Decepticon.
Exactly. It's huge. Optimist crime, I think is what they're calling it. But they have all these cameras in it, and it's in the top thing that goes up like 40 feet, a little pole with 2 cameras on it. But that was the question I asked. I was like, is there anything that we can use that is portable that will connect through Wi-Fi or give you the live feed? And he looked at me funny. I'm like, we can do it through FaceTime. Like, well, if the technology ain't that hard. Yeah, it's like, he's like, oh no. So you're telling me that if I wanted to do it, I would have to go and just FaceTime, and we would just connect through Apple TV or something? He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. It's funny sometimes the roadblocks to technology. We implemented we're totally getting off track, but this is fine. We implemented a paperless reporting system 7 years ago, maybe even 8. Paperless reporting. You go to a computer, you log on, you type your report into the interwebs or whatever, right? You hit save, it gets approved by a supervisor. What happens to it from there, this paperless reporting system? A records clerk prints it out on paper, scans it into Laserfish to store, and then shreds it. Huh. Yeah, just think about the redundancies and the issues.
I love that stuff. It cracks me up.
Yeah. So
we mean well.
We're trying, right?
But there's always some sort of goofy, like, every department has it. Like, why do we do this? This doesn't make sense. This other agency has it figured out. Why don't we do that? And then you talk. I mean, there's always something.
There's always something, and that guy has something pointing back at your agency, going, "Well, they're doing it right. Why aren't we doing it like them?" It's just one of those things. And I think one of the biggest things is a lot of times we put cops in charge of these things. We put a cop in charge of S&T, and he doesn't want to be in charge of S&T, or he doesn't. That's not his specialty. He didn't go to school for it. He didn't know those things. But you get promoted, you get put into an assignment, and you're all of a sudden in charge of civilians and budgets and all that. And it's.
And the other thing, one of my favorite things about police officers is how passionately excited and upset we get about stupid stuff. Right? It's who cares? Just do it. It's not, you can't change anything.
Yeah. I often will tell some of my guys, like, is what I'm asking you to do affecting your pay for the day? I say, well, no. Well, then just doesn't matter, really, does it? Yep. What you're doing, you might as well do it right.
I love it. We're just always, man.
Yeah. We're fantastic and fascinating people, and we are our own microcosm of society.
Yep.
Your psychology degree must come in handy quite a bit.
Oh yeah. Well, but I think going back to what you were saying about time management.
Oh yes, back to what you're here for.
So the big one, my wife still gets mad at me sometimes about doing the Wodcast or doing other things, but I think she sees the benefit of it for me as well, and I think this is important for law enforcement, or really anybody, is that I have another hat. I have something else to do that's not related to being a police officer. There's another hobby that has nothing to do with it, and I have friends in the community that have nothing to do with police work.
Yeah,
and I think that's important, and that's something that my family understands. And so it's somewhat of it's a professional hobby, but it's also an outlet,
sure, and
a stress reliever. So
yeah, that's big, and that's something that we all have to focus on. I mean, they always tell you one of the first things in the academy is don't lose your non-law enforcement friends. Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah,
it's really hard. Does your wife CrossFit too? Is she into it, or is she just kind of let you go? No, she's in.
Yeah, no, she for the longest time she wasn't at first in the beginning, but she gets comfortable doing something, and she's hard to change. But she does CrossFit now. We used to go to Dogtown together all the time. We started bringing the baby She CrossFit all through the first pregnancy, and then we brought the kid there, and he was raised pretty much in a CrossFit gym.
Yeah.
So tremendously helpful. It'd be really hard to be involved this much in CrossFit and have her not.
Mm-hmm.
Because then, I don't know. So
when it's hard to understand if you don't.
Yeah, you have to understand the language and everything. And at first, she was just still doing the regular old going to the gym and putting headphones on, running on the treadmill 45 minutes. She was doing that stuff. But now she's really into it. She's even branched out now and is doing some stuff online, like Pio or some. I don't know what she's doing. She follows
Pio. Yeah.
She's always talking about Pio. What is this Pio?
It's Pilates and yoga together.
Oh, okay.
It's a Beachbody program, I think. You know, like P90X.
Yep.
It's one of those, but it's that's what it is. It's videos.
I'm gonna have to try it.
It doesn't like
they were doing one move there that I'm like, that's gonna make my butt sore.
It's not a joke. No. It's I mean, Pilates isn't easy, and yoga is not easy if done right. And I've seen some of the workouts, and I'm
definitely gonna check it out. I like checking out different fitness things. I like checking out strongman stuff. I've done Soul Cycle. I haven't tried Orange Theory yet.
I don't know what that one is.
It's popping up. You're going to come across it at some point in time here soon. It's CrossFit-ish related. You're still doing interval training and going hard and doing different things in a group setting. But it's my understanding you're not necessarily counting your reps. You're not keeping score. So that's one thing I ask the guys. So I have some friends that do it. I'm like, why? So how do you know you're improving? I'm like, well, we don't. We just go by feel and stuff like that. So it's almost, to me, it feels like CrossFit, but without some of the pressure.
Like CrossFit for a type B personality?
Yeah, but I think in CrossFit, sometimes the stuff that we might love, some other people might not like.
Sure. Which
is like the ranking or how you did or putting scores on the board. Some people don't like that.
That's a big intimidation, I think, to people.
Yeah.
It's an ego check. I think it's an ego check just coming in the door of a CrossFit gym the first time. But every time when you know there's going to be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys stronger than you and a whole host of women who are way stronger than you too. I mean, that was my experience going into my gym, my box for several times or months was I knew going in that there were these incredibly gifted, fit female athletes there who were going to smoke me on everything. And you just have to get over that male ego and go. Otherwise, you're just going to be miserable. Or you're not going to come back. One of the two.
Yep. That is a humongous life lesson. That's why I have it written on one of the things right there written in blue.
Yeah.
F ego.
F ego.
Can't have that if you want to enjoy being CrossFit because you always suck.
Yeah. No, it's my gym had a doormat that said, check your ego here.
Yep.
Someone stole it.
What? That's funny.
But yeah, that's actually what they had. And I thought it was absolutely appropriate that you've got to leave that in the car. And frankly, you got to leave it out of your life if you can. That's tough. And that's,
yep. I think most CrossFit affiliates do a really good job of making people feel welcome.
Yeah.
Every now and then you have some that are probably young and tough, but
I've never experienced it as the gym's fault. It's all in your own head. You walk in there and my gym right now is fielding a really competitive team. They're all early 20s, out of school track athletes, a couple of regional competitors in there. And they're phenomenally talented. They're phenomenally gifted. But as a 38-year-old guy, father of 2 coming off night shift, I go in there and I got to remember I'm not that. That's not my life. And those aren't my goals as much as I'd love them to be. And I'd love to look like that. I've got my own battle I got to face. So I got to kind of compartmentalize that and put them aside.
That competitive part of CrossFit is it's very good. Like it's a marketing tool, but it is very, I always tell people it's like less than 1% of what CrossFit is. CrossFit is for guys like you. Mm-hmm. That's what CrossFit is. That's how I got started. When CrossFit started, it wasn't like, okay, let's make the competitors. What's your fastest Fran time? What's your snatch? It didn't matter. It was like, do you look good? Are you feeling better? Are you performing better? So it's like look, feel, perform. If those things are improving, then like you're doing awesome. Yeah. Like who cares if you got on the podium at some weekend competition? Yippee, whoop-de-doo-dah,
Yeah.
So that's the stuff that's really important. I think we need to keep remembering to put emphasis on. The CrossFit Games are great and everything. It's fun to talk about, but it's I don't want to say it's almost unhealthy. Think about it. Some of these, they're training all day long.
Sure,
their lives, they're dedicating their sleep, their eating, their mobility, everything to being good at CrossFit. So in a way, it's a bad lesson for a new CrossFitter to come along and look at.
Mm-hmm.
To me, CrossFit is the best prehab and rehab program you can do. Simple as that. You got boo-boos. CrossFit's probably going to help you fix them if you move correctly and help you keep moving throughout your life better. And if you are, all of us are going to be hurt, but you might not if you CrossFit well.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I say from prehab.
Yeah, and I totally agree. My experience coming in was actually through Mobility WOD.
Mm-hmm.
And a partner of mine, much like Andy with you in the main site, was I had broken my back in a mountain biking accident. And
you and those bikes.
I know, not good. That's a fair point, actually.
Yeah.
That bike actually moves and pedals,
sense.
and it's a love-hate relationship. Apparently, I love it and it hates me. But I was coming back from that, and I had all sorts of issues around my T11, T12, and a partner turned me on a Mobility WOD, and I came into CrossFit through the mobility side and wanting to work out those problems that I was having, plus back issues like we all have and all that, and came into CrossFit kind of, I guess, through that back door in a way. But it's right, because it is the only thing I think that has kept me from having worse back problems or other mobility problems. I've had back problems since my early 20s, but going to the regular gym, the 24-hour fitness or whatever, none of that really ever did anything to prevent it. And CrossFit, though I've hurt my back in the interim, definitely has made it stronger, has made me rehab quicker, but has also taught me how to prehab, like you say, and the mobility and the importance of kind of working those things out before they become issues. So my perspective on my body has definitely gone from a narrow view to a kind of a 180, 360 type
Which
view.
is really cool, because it points out to think that you are responsible and able to take care of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And that was one of those lights that kind of went on. And part of this podcast too is learning from people how to take care of yourself. Like, what is it that each of these guests can offer that I can take and be better about taking care of myself?
Yep.
All those things.
I tell people a lot that if you do nothing different, this is the best shape you're ever going to be in. You know, like if you just want to not work out, just pay attention to right now. This is it. This is the pinnacle of the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Are you happy with it? Because it's going to get worse. And that's something that's like, oh yeah, damn. Because I'm only going to get older. Gravity is unforgiving. You know.
Yeah.
Like food starts mattering more.
Yeah.
And the big one is like mobility is so important.
Mm-hmm.
And being aware of that. Being aware of can you get off the ground without using your hands?
Mm-hmm.
If anyone's listening, try that. At some point in time, sit on the ground, don't use your hands, see if you can get up. Because that's a huge indicator of quality of life, and I think even length of life.
Yeah.
And to be able to do that stuff and take care of yourself, and to, such as yourself, be able to continue to move well and train in lieu of back pain. Because you think about it, like you could have gone this direction and been a lot worse, and maybe taken a lot more time off from work than you expected.
Mm-hmm.
Potentially retiring early, which happens.
Yeah.
And then the other direction, you're like, hey, I'm in charge. I'm going to fight this, and I'm going to improve myself regardless of my circumstances. You know,
Mm-hmm.
those things are going this direction and making that choice to improve yourself and to be a better dad, friend, leader, husband. To me, that is way cooler than any fitness competitor can do.
Well, thank you.
No, I mean, it's absolutely that stuff needs to be rewarded and pointed out. It's so cool.
I appreciate that, and this has been a rewarding experience for me all around too. I get to I leave every interview really inspired, really motivated. I look forward to each one because I know I'm gonna get something out of it. For the Wodcast for you, what opportunities have you gotten out of that, or experiences, or maybe just a better question is, what opportunities has your fitness gotten you or given you?
So the simplest answer to that is I have been able to, this has nothing to do with the Wodcast, but it has to do with me. I have been hurt badly. I've lost the ability to play Frisbee at the park, something as simple as that. The ability to get off the toilet comfortably, to be able to step out of my car, be able to stand up and walk away from it without pain. To be able to, when you're crossing the street and a car is coming and you're like, oh, you kind of want to hurry up a little bit. I lost the ability to speed up out of the way of a car.
Really?
To be able to jump up a curb. From my back injuries, I've torn my hamstring. Just about any little thing on my body I've hurt before.
Mm-hmm.
And so to be able to have fitness, to have wellness, to be able to stand up straight and walk and jog and play, those things to me are the things I'm most proud of fitness-wise, because it's a gift. It's a privilege. And a lot of people don't have those things. So I like to think of it as, imagine you're 80 years old. Imagine you at 80, 85. And now you went back in time into the body you have now. Like, what would you do? How cool would that feel?
Yeah.
Like, wow, I can you can walk over and pick up this heavy bag. That's so cool. Some people don't have that ability to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Some people don't have the ability to hold something with their opposable thumb. So all these little small things to me, I look as a huge gift. I have a functioning, able, healthy-ish body that I get to go play with my kids, and I get to go to work, and I get to go help people train themselves. I get to lift things and feel pain. I can jog and it hurts. Mm-hmm. Those are all things that people somewhere out there don't have the ability to do. And so I don't take any of that stuff for granted. So that's the biggest thing I love about fitness. And as far as the Wodcast goes, the experiences I've gotten through that is one of the biggest takeaways I realize from every athlete or coach is that we're all pretty much the same. We all have the same insecurities. Some of the athletes are very insecure, and actually a lot of them aren't very strong mentally. You might see them on their Instagram and stuff like that, or in the competitions, but they break down a lot. And so mental strength is something that I really like to take away and discuss with people, because a lot of them lack it. And I think that's something that maybe in the future is going to start coming up and playing more of an important role. That's why you've seen a lot of these CrossFitters get into SEAL Fit.
Yeah.
Because they need to find something that makes them dig deep and drive through any adversity.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is very, very interesting. Sometimes it's hard to really dig deep into that on the Wodcast.
Sure.
Because, there's a bunch of us and we're having fun. But that kind of thing. And then, of course, it's talking to everybody and taking away something from every single person that comes on and different perspectives. And to learn things about nutrition and things like how important rest is. A lot of people don't really realize that.
Yeah.
If you train hard. If you're one of the person that isn't training that hard, then it's not as important. But people that are taxing themselves, like some of the fitness competitors I see these days. One of the good episodes was with my friend Brad Davison early on. He was talking about your heart rate variability, and he has this app, and this thing, really expensive thing, connects to his iPad and checks. It measures it tells you should not train today.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so stuff like that, and paying attention to rest and how important it is to continue to have fun. That type of stuff is what really drives me, keeps me going. And, of course, having a sense of humor.
Yeah.
And realizing how important it is to fail and keep pushing yourself.
Interesting.
I think it's really important to fall on your butt when you lift a barbell every now and then. And brush yourself off, because if being successful every time does not make you stronger mentally.
Sure. And it also is an indication you're not trying hard enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, you mentioned we mentioned your kids a few times. You've had a pretty dynamic year.
Yeah.
That's not even the right word for it, but I don't even know the right word to use for it. I know a little bit because of what you've shared on your Instagram and in some email correspondence we've had, but I think there's a great lesson to be learned from that and in your response. Are you willing to share a little bit about what
Absolutely.
you went through this year?
So I have a 3-year-old boy now. His name is Caden. Where should I start? And a 4-month-old baby now. Well, when we found out that we were pregnant with the second son, Connor. Everything was normal. First, we go and you take those blood tests and be like, all right, we're taking this. We do all these tests. You won't hear from us. If everything's okay, you're not going to hear from us. Don't worry about it. Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah, no problem. Well, in this one, we got called back, and turned out some of my wife's antibodies were really high. And so that kind of freaked us out. So we go in and we check these antibodies, and they were high, confirmed from a bunch of different tests. Well, it turns out that I have something called I'm Kel positive, and which doesn't really affect me. It has nothing to do with my blood type. If you guys are listening, it's similar to your RH factor of your blood. So basically, on the surface of my blood cells, there's like a little satellite piece. So the surface of my red blood cell looks a little different than most people. I like to think of it as an advantage. So it's an enhancement. But so my wife does not have it. And so when we have a baby, it's a 50-50 chance that I will pass on my Kel positive. So turns out baby one got Kel positive as well. So you have a Kel positive baby and a negative environment mom. But she didn't have an antibody built up for it. So at some point in time during the childbirth or something with baby one, some of his blood got into mom, and now mom built up an antibody for that blood. So it's kind of like what happens when you get a flu shot. You get a flu shot, so you build up antibodies for flu. So that's what ends up happening. So she has an army now. So baby 2 comes around, 50-50 chance, baby 2 gets Kel positive. So now you have the baby inside with an army of attackers for his red blood cells. And so we found out over time that her immune system was attacking Connor's red blood cells and his ability to create red blood cells. And so it's very aggressive. And this was around week 20. Oh, wow. And so we go in, we finally go see this doctor, and he tells us all this stuff. And it happened really fast because we ended up getting ultrasounds and looking at his heart was enlarged, and he was already getting what's called high drops. So he was getting swelling in his stomach. There was swelling around some of the organs and swelling in between his skull and his scalp. So that happens when your red blood cells go down low, and the heart had to keep growing really big because it had to pump harder and harder and harder. And so he tells us this stuff and basically gives us the option we can either cancel the pregnancy or drive full on and see what happens, but this is a path this is what it's going to look like. And so at no point in time do I even consider like canceling the pregnancy. It's like, just whatever, what do we have to do? Like, just tell us whatever has to happen, we're going to do it. Like, we're not going to quit. And so we came, I want to say 2 days probably away from him dying early on there in the pregnancy. He got really bad, the swelling, and eventually we go in and get an intrauterine blood transfusion. So it's a full-blown surgery. She goes, eventually, it's through, how can I explain it? Long syringe goes into the umbilical cord, a vein in the umbilical cord to do a blood transfusion.
Holy cow.
Yeah, right? Like, and this guy happens to be in LA. He was out in Hollywood, so it's like 45 minutes from us. If he wasn't there, we would have been flying to Florida.
Oh, wow.
For all this stuff. So we're very lucky there. But when the first surgery, his blood was like water, they said. It was like a hemoglobin level of 2. And normally it's like 14 to 16. So they ended up they could only do part of the blood transfusion on that one. So they do part of the blood transfusion because they couldn't give him too much because his heart would have exploded pretty much. Oh, so they do that. We're back home. The TV's on, but we're not watching it. It's just kind of on. Both of us are sitting on the couch. Our mouth is kind of open, and we're just like staring at stuff. You get those moments in life. You just sit there and stare. There's like nothing else you can do.
Sure, you're
exhausted. Like numb, exhausted.
Numb.
You're stressed. Your emotions have gone up and down. You're just like dumbfounded. Well, we're doing that, and then next thing I know, my wife reaches over and just grabs my hand. Wham! Just reaches over, grabs my wrist, and yanks it over to her stomach and puts it on her stomach. And at that point in time, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, and then all of a sudden, we feel like this huge, like front kick, bam, just right into my hand. And it was the first time I had felt him move.
Oh, wow.
So earlier in the day, we thought he was dead. She hadn't felt him move in like 2 days.
You really thought?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
We got to the hospital. The first thing we wanted to know was if he had a heartbeat. And after that, we didn't care about the surgery. We're like, is he alive? And so we had that feeling in the morning to go into doing this because the baby had to be put out as well so he didn't move. So all this stuff, we're worrying about him being alive. I'm sitting there. Next thing you know, I feel him just kick my hand so hard. Like it almost kicked off of her stomach. So the first time I had felt him move, and that like sent a chill up my spine. And I stopped feeling bad. I stopped sitting there with my mouth open. I was like, that's it. We're winning. Get up. We're fired up. This is going to work. I want to go work out. I was so fired up. Like unbelievably, like the amount of drive and motivation that he had given me at that moment in time, nothing didn't matter anymore. Mm-hmm. I knew it would work. That was early on, so we ended up going through 5 of those, actually. During one of the ultrasounds, we ended up, the doctor flipped like the screen, I guess the different type of thing that the ultrasound looks for, and sees a lot of blood flow by the cervical opening. And didn't know what that was. Turns out she also had a vasoprevia. I'm not sure how you say it. But it's needless to say there's a vein in the placenta that comes off too close to the cervical opening. So if the water were to break or preterm labor, that vein could be severed and the baby could have bled out in 3 seconds or under 3 minutes. And so we're like, what? Like, we got this going on, not that. It's like, no, you also have that. 1 in 5,000 chance.
Oh, gosh.
So we have these 2 things going on. So she ended up getting bed rest. That's why I said she was CrossFitting once we found that out. No more CrossFitting. Yeah. But it's kind of weird because if it wasn't for the blood issue, we might not have found out about the other issue. Which means that at birth, she could have gone full term and he could have died at birth anyways. The whole thing's kind of a trip. So we go through the 5 surgeries, really positive about the whole thing. It's still really hard on everybody. It's hard on the kid. It's hard on mom. She was in the hospital for 3.5 weeks in the labor and delivery prior to having the baby. He came out 35 weeks. During the surgery, or during the C-section, he comes out with an APGAR score of 1. He wasn't moving, wasn't crying. He was blue. He had the umbilical cord wrapped around his neck twice. And I didn't really catch it at first. I'm thinking, he's kind of quiet. What's going on over there? And once they took him out, the doctors all kind of huddled around, so I couldn't see. Needless to say, about a minute later, he kicks into gear, starts crying, and probably so far the most resilient little dude I've ever met.
Yeah.
So he's gone through this blood issue, wasn't creating his own blood, gets all these surgeries, was in the NICU for 3 weeks, got more blood transfusions after that. And here we are 4 months later, and he's still
going strong.
Yeah.
Wow. He's
winning. He's definitely winning. He's kicking our butt. He's tough, but it puts a perspective on it.
Sure.
I get frustrated now. We had the kid, but it's to hear him cry. You get really frustrated. You haven't slept for a long time, and that baby crying at 4 a.m. You just want to shake and bang your head into the wall. But then I remember, I can hear him crying and how lucky we are because it was pretty close. So that's what I mean. It goes back to the whole, remember, what you have and what you have the ability to do is a privilege and a gift. It's not something that is just given. And the same thing with the baby. As hard as it is, we have a healthy child that shouldn't have made it. There were so many things that should have gone the other way or should have gone wrong, and it didn't. And so that type of perspective, you can't beat us. We have an optimistic look on life, and we're lucky and happy to have everything we have. And it doesn't matter. we're gonna make it. We're gonna be happy, and we're gonna be proud of it.
Where do you think that comes from? Is it just you were raised optimistically, or was there a shift ever in your life that you have? Because that's not natural. I mean, it's natural for a lot of people, and I'd like to think I'm included in that. But it's also not natural for some people, and maybe it's something that happened early on. What was it for you that gave you that perspective?
I really wish I knew. I don't. It was not my parents, and I say it because, my dad passed away a week after my first son was born.
Wow,
that was like another weird type of. But he died of cancer early on in his life. But the way I look at that is that he gave me the opportunity to become a good father myself, and so his wasn't in vain.
Mm-hmm.
But my mom is like the most pessimistic person I've ever met, and so we get in fights about that all the time because she wants to be pessimistic, but I won't break, and so the two of us I don't know. I remember being, I don't know if it's an old soul thing or little piece by little piece of things. One important thing that happened to me when I tore my hamstring, like I said, early on in college or during college, and I had to miss a year of football. And I didn't realize until I read some books. I read Pat Croce's book, some of his early on stuff. Very positive guy.
Mm-hmm.
I went to an injured, like an AA meeting for injured athletes. They have those. That's how I got involved with sports psychology, because you have this identity as here I am a football player, and now I'm not. So who am I?
Mm-hmm.
So I used to go to these things, these support groups, and so stuff like that. And then it hit me one day about how I'm responsible for my own current predicament. It's me. Like, my hamstring is messed up, not because of the trainers, not because of my coaches. It's because of me. I didn't take care of it. I didn't take care of myself. I didn't hydrate. I didn't mobilize. I didn't get it stronger when I heard it the first time, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was mad, but then I got so excited when I realized that it was up to me. Because then it's like, it's up to me. I don't need anybody else. I can do whatever I want. And so I started training harder. I started eating better. I started reading more. I started training before, after practice, and then I got contagious and started training with other guys. And so when I realized that responsibility was on me and how lucky I was that it was on me, that is what kind of kick-started it a little bit. Mm-hmm. It played a part. I didn't realize, you don't realize how things are taken for granted until it's taken away from you. And anyone that's ever had an abdominal injury knows what I'm talking about. Like, just the ability to sneeze without pain, or a back injury, stuff like that. And so being injured a lot has taught me that level of respect for the body. So the ability to, like I was saying, get out of the car, all the stuff I talked about earlier, that's happened to me. And it hit me one day that, I wanted to be able to play with my kids. I wanted to be able to be at the beach and throw a frisbee with my kids one day. And this is way before I had kids. Mm-hmm. And this is looking at your physical body as an investment in the future. And so you start taking care of that stuff, and fired me up to be able to one day get that stuff back. Get in the shower, get out of bed. I had the hardest time putting my socks on. I've had, if you had back injuries, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
I do. Oh, yeah. I wore flip-flops for a month straight once, just because I couldn't get socks on.
That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. And so to be able to do that stuff after not being able to, that helps put perspective on the physical aspect. But then also is the positive stuff, the optimism and the drive. And you look over here, you see around, you can see I have unbreakable written up here. I got F ego. I got all these cool strength and honor. I got Sisu on the wall over here. If you don't know what Sisu is, Google it.
Yeah, no, I was going to ask you about that too. That's one of my favorite phrases or words. It's really a word. It's a Finnish word, right? But the definition behind it is probably a paragraph long.
Yeah, it's hard,
and it's kind of vague. Yeah, it's a
It is vague. I think it's a much better word that encompasses that type of spirit and life, like attitude, better than any other English word.
Yeah, exactly right. It takes an English paragraph to explain one word, one four-letter word, S-I-S-U.
I want to think maybe resilience maybe is the closest thing in English, but resilience is still limiting.
Yeah, well, there's an element of stoicism in that too, and in your reaction to the events that are given to you, and sort of an ability to keep moving forward despite obstacle. Again, kind of a stoic idea, but also, if you're familiar, you probably know some Northern Europeaners, and they all see, a lot of them, it's kind of a characteristic of people from that area. My heritage is Dutch and Norwegian, right? And I can see that kind of attitude of you just grit and continue forward. And I think a lot comes from the environment that you grew up in, and then that environment of Northern Europe and the cold and that desolate area. And I think that translates to the same people that grew up here.
I actually think maybe it applies more to the World War II generation of Americans as well. Not necessarily now with these knuckleheads, but I don't know if you've seen on my Instagram and Facebook, I have a huge poster that I made up with Sisu, and a lot of the important things I took out and made a huge canvas thing, and it's up on the wall right by my front door.
Oh, I don't think I have seen that.
I'll show it to you when we're done. I put it up there. I made that. See, it's always been important to me for a long time, the word, but I never physically had anything manifested. And so once we went through this whole thing with my son, I put it up and made it, and I left it there. And I tell my wife I want to leave it there by the front door because there's lessons here that I want to remind myself, but also lessons I want my kids to see and learn every time they leave home. It's the kind of grittiness and actually I'll if you want, post it up on your
I'd love for people to see
Squad Room Instagram. Check it out. But Sisu, man, boils down. So that's the kind of thing. So I have it all around me, and I don't know exactly where, but it won't be broken. I know that.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. You kind of blew me away. Like I said, I like to think I have a positive attitude, and I'm motivated, and I always am seeing or looking for the positive things. But I correct me if I'm wrong, but the night before Connor was born, didn't you do a Murph?
Yep.
On your own? Was that to just blow off steam?
That was, so as we talked about earlier, Greg Amundson. So we started this thing we want to do for law enforcement teams. So we want to do, it was Murph. You take on your tactical team, or we might spread out to departments, but on tactical teams, you take your fastest 10 guys or your top 10 scores. Everyone does Murph. You take your 10 scores, tally up the time, and submit it. And so Santa Monica did it. It was St. Lucie County SWAT team.
Oh, he told me about this when I saw him. Yeah,
they challenged us to a Murph off, if you will. And because we motivated them, and I guess they do Murph now as well for their qualifier. So super cool. And that spread out to other teams. And so my team did it with Rory from HQ and Dave Castro. They all did it at Precision CrossFit. But the day they were doing Murph was the same day as the scheduled C-section. And so I was involved in the whole getting the whole project going, and so I don't want my team doing Murph and then me not do it.
Right.
And so I that's why I did it and filmed it the best that I could, and I did it in here broke my pull-up bar and had to end up doing it here on this piece of wood. But I did it really quickly here in my gear, and while my kid napped, my first son. So come to find out that if you have your baby napping and you need to run a mile, you run a lot faster trying to get back home because I don't want to leave him by himself. So I was a man on a mission. So I was mission one for my kid napping, but also I was very motivated and fired up because the next day Connor was coming out. And so, like, he made it. He was strong. He was tough. He dealt with more than anything I've ever done. And so, I mean, I put it out there. I was like, there's nothing, you can't break me now. Yeah. This is it. And so I went for it. And, yeah, the next day he was born.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even we corresponded by email for quite a while before we were able to connect up to do this, and part of that was you were sending me texts or emails from the hospital, like, hey, I'm just trying to keep my wife entertained or occupied, and
yeah, we spent a lot of time there. Yep.
I'm impressed by your ability to see the outside world, but also see all those things that are going on at the same time. It's something that could be very is very intense, very heavy, but could be very much a all-consuming too. It's amazing.
Well, thank you. But there's people going through worse things out there. We're very lucky to be in an area where we have very good hospitals, very good doctors. For stuff like that, we're in the best place in the world to be in.
Sure.
So knowing that as well and the trust in them, I mean, like I said, there were people going through something similar, and they had to fly from several states away several times a month to do it and be away from their families. So, man, like I said, people out there have it worse than we did. So we're lucky.
Yeah, that's amazing. Two kids. I have two as well, 7 and 4, and it's amazing that what they give you and what they teach you too.
Yep.
I learn more from my 4-year-old every day than I think I ever learned from any of my own active study. Wow. And most of it is an ass kicker.
Yep.
They'll, especially my 7-year-old, will be blunt and tell you straight up when you fail.
That's awesome. I know my 3-year-old passionately loves trash trucks.
Yeah,
he loves it.
One passed earlier, right? And
yeah,
he was
you saw him how much he loved. Like, and that passion doesn't have to go anywhere because you grow up.
Right.
I tell you, you don't have to act cool, man. You can still get excited about things. Like, look, he has the ability to see trash trucks on his street.
Yeah.
And you look, I'm like, they are really cool, actually. They come, they make noise. They have these rotating arms. There's side loaders. There's front loaders. There's all kinds of cool stuff. So that's what I'm saying. So I get to see the eyes through them, which is all optimistic.
Sure.
It's so cool to see.
Yeah. You definitely become younger once you have kids. And if you can't, it's sad if you can't tap into that. Not saying that you can always do it. And I was telling my wife just the other night, like, I fail more times a day as a parent than I succeed, but you still try. But when you're able to tap into that creativity and sense of wonder, it's pretty awesome, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. Kind of touched on it, or probably already touched on it, but I'm just curious. Talk more about work stuff and working. I spent last week in peer support training because we're developing a peer support program at my agency.
Very important.
And I don't know if you guys have one or not, but for people who aren't familiar with it, it's basically a first line of defense against the deterioration of the officer. Meaning, if you're having a problem either with marriage or relationships or a substance abuse or just depression or feeling down or feeling anxiety, we're kind of that first step into helping into EAP or referrals to professionals. We're not the therapist per se. We don't sit anybody down on the couch and talk things through, but there's a lot to learn from to help guide people, I guess. So it was a couple days of training, heavy talk of police suicide and depression and again substance abuse, stuff like all the things that could possibly come down on us. And sadly, on the last day of class, as we're talking about police suicide, a local officer committed suicide. After having a rough year of some stuff. So it was very timely. And I definitely walked away from those classes a little heavy-hearted just with the material, but happy that I'm going to be helping implement something that we're able to do something for other people. I have many favorite things about being in law enforcement, but I think my favorite is just the people that I get to work with. And the commitment that they make to these people that they've never met, to the public. Like you said earlier, they're going code 3. They're going to someone who needs help. And they're the ones who signed up for it and volunteered. And they go, all the cliches. They're the ones who run towards the gunfire. They go into that. And you talk too about, there's plenty of people in life who are broken, who can't get up and can't stand up. And we go to help those people too.
Yep. It's unnatural to have to wear a bullet resistant vest at work.
Right.
That's something weird. Like most people don't go to work. All right, let me get my tie, my belt. Let me throw on my vest in case somebody shoots me, and then go to work.
Right. My accountant doesn't go to work every day wondering if this is the day someone's going to assassinate him because he's an accountant.
Yep. So along the same lines, that people also tend to forget that in law enforcement, we deal with the worst parts of human behavior. The worst parts of human behavior. It's not like, oh, Billy's 13th birthday party. Call the police. Have them come watch him hit the piñata. It's not like that.
Yeah.
And so the worst parts, and if anyone that's listening that's not in law enforcement, anything you can think of, your imagination, if you can think of it, that's where police go. Mm-hmm. So the other thing that people don't realize is that most of us have the broadest shoulders to be able to deal with that. That's part of why we're able to do our job for the most part, is be able to deal with the ugly parts of human behavior. We can shoulder that burden. But the underbelly side of that is, I think, that type of help for that part of the officer is very low. Like what you're talking about, this stuff is very, very, very important. I think we're just now starting to kind of realize that.
Yeah.
As much as, and I don't know what the answer is. Myself, I didn't really realize how much I was affected until I left patrol for a while. Then I kind of like, whoa, like I didn't realize how much of not funk, but I was more pessimistic than I normally am. I was a little bit shorter with people than I normally am. I looked at certain people differently in life when I wasn't even working. There's a lot of things that you take home with you. But over the course of a career, that type of help is so important.
Yeah.
Have you ever listened to any of Gil Martin's speeches or read his book?
He came up several times. Kevin Gilmartin, you're talking about, right? Yep. Yeah, he came up several times and have not yet.
Highly recommend it.
Yeah.
So, highly recommend it. He talks about all this stuff, but the biggest solution that he gives is physical fitness. And he talks a lot about CrossFit, actually.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and how important that is for mental health for police officers.
Yeah, as this project goes, kind of learning and reinforcing that all of these things are interrelated. Your sleep, your fitness, your mental attitude, your everything between your blood work to your diet. All those things kind of work together. And if you're not careful, they can be corrosive. There's a lot of things we can do to combat that. And that's, of course, physical fitness being such a major part of that.
Yep. First part I would say is awareness.
Yes.
Understanding that is an issue and a threat to you.
Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right. Being self-aware, both of where you're physically at, but also you're mentally at, and I always encourage my guys, if, there's nothing wrong with a mental health day. If you're burnt out and you need time off and you need to step away from it for a day, there's nothing wrong with that, because this is a hard job. To just go in every day and every day and every day and just kind of see, like you say, those same things over and over again.
Yeah, especially when you're hurting. You look at that physically. If you're kind of hurting, it's better to take a day off and save the next 3 or 4 days of good workouts than to push it that one day and then lose several weeks.
Yeah.
It works mentally as well.
Scott, I really appreciate your time. Where can people find you on the social medias, et cetera, and how do they learn about the Wodcast podcast?
Social media, I'm at Scott McGee on Instagram and Twitter. I use Instagram more than Twitter. I can't keep juggling all these social media things anymore. But mostly on Instagram. I'm also on Facebook, Scott McGee. And you can check out the Wodcast, wodcastpodcast.com, and at Wodcast Podcast on Instagram and Twitter. And then, of course, find us on iTunes.
Yeah. Right next to the squad room, hopefully.
Yep.
We'll link to all those in the show notes, too, so people can go to thesquadroom.net and then follow those links to check you out. Thanks for your time, man. Appreciate it.
Hey, thank you very much for doing this. I think the law enforcement community really needs this type of stuff, and so I hope it really drives on and keeps growing. It's super cool that you're doing this.
Awesome. Thank you very much. All right. Thanks for listening. To follow Scott on Instagram, it's one Scott McGee. That's at the letter one. The letter one. The number one at one Scott McGee. I'm just going to start over. All right. That was Scott McGee. You can find him on Instagram at one Scott McGee. That's the 1, Scott McGee, MCGEE. Follow the Squad Room on Twitter and Instagram, both at the Squad Room. Our website is thesquadroom.net. You can head over there for all the show notes and the videos and the links to all the stuff we talk about in the show. You can shoot me an email at squadroompodcast@gmail.com if you want to chat. And the best thing to do is to text the Squad Room, all one word, to 44222, and you can get instantly signed up for our newsletter. We'll be doing lots of cool stuff, some giveaways in the near future. Again, I want to thank SB Tactical and the iCombat training system for their support of the show. Check them out at sbtactical.com. Watch the video of their active shooter training in action. It'll give you a really good sense of what they're up to. Until next time, take care of each other and stay safe.